Everyone, Faraq Nazir from the Department of Education, Hazara University, Mansehra is here. So, today we are going to discuss an important topic that is related to teaching practice, the bridging the gap between learning research and teaching practice. So, let's begin. So, this is the overview of the today's presentation. So, first of all, I will discuss what is learning, and then I will discuss the what are the seven principles of learning, and then the implications of the principles of learning for teaching practice. So let's begin. What is learning? Learning is defined as a process that leads to change, which occurs as a result of experience and increases the potential for improved performance and future learning. So, in this definition, the author has discussed like the three critical components of the learning. So, what are these critical components? One is the that learning is a process, not a product. So, learning takes place in the mind of the learner. So, how can we know that someone has learned something or not? We learn this from the product and the performance of the learner. The second one is that learning involves change in knowledge, belief, behaviors, or attitude. And when we see that someone, because of the learning, people have some developed attitude or have some developed knowledge or new knowledge. So this is a kind of the reflection that the person has learned something. So the other thing is that learning, the third one option, that learning is not something done to students, but rather something students themselves do. So this is the one of the more important aspect of the learning process that shows that the students are the active part of the learning process. They are like not the passive people that the teacher inculcate or teacher like brings knowledge into their mind, but they are the active participants in the teaching learning process. So these are the three critical components of the definition of learning, that learning is a process, not a product. Learning involves change in belief, attitude, knowledge, and learning is an active process, not a passive process. So, related to this definition, there are the seven principles of learning. So, let's discuss each principle one by one. The first principle is that the student's prior knowledge can help or hinder learning. So, what's the prior knowledge? Prior knowledge that the students come into a classroom with some knowledge about some process or things. So, it is it is like the duty of the teacher to connect that previous knowledge that the students have learned to the new knowledge that the teacher is going to teach to the students. So, if the connection develops between the prior knowledge and the new knowledge, then effective learning takes place. So, as in the diagram, you can see that the prior knowledge include facts, concepts, skills, and it can be declarative like the what type of question or the procedural, that how certain phenomenon takes place, and the contextual questions like when that happened, or these type of questions that these type of question can activate prior knowledge. The second principle is how students organize knowledge influences how they learn and apply what they know. So, a teacher, students naturally make connection between pieces of knowledge. So, this principle is also related to the first one, that like the making the connection between the what the students knows and what he's going to learn next. So when this connections is developed, in a coherent way, like the using the graphic organizers or some mapping technique, so the students can connect the dots. So effective learning takes place in that way. In contrast, when there's like no linkage between students learning, so the students learning is like not the effective learning, but just the like random putting information to students. So the third principle is like students motivation determines, directs and sustains what they do to learn. Motivation is one of the most important aspects of the student learning. If students are motivated to learn, they will put extra effort and a long-term effort into the task. So providing a right type of information and the like and adequate feedback and just using the strategies so that student can maintain their motivation is one of the most important aspects of the learning process. The fourth principle of effective learning is to develop mastery. Student must acquire component skills, practice integrated them, and know when to apply what they have learned. Students must learn when and how to apply the skills and knowledge they learn. So it is like related to the practical aspects or application of the knowledge. So the students' knowledge shouldn't be in the form of in the form that they are like they have bookish knowledge, but they know like to translate the knowledge into practical knowledge, the connection between theory and practice. So the fifth principle is like goal directed practice coupled with targeted feedback enhances the quality of students' learning. So when the students are given opportunities, so to practice their knowledge and then the feedback is provided, effective student learning takes place. Students learn from their mistakes, and when the adequate feedback is provided, it like enhances their learning. The sixth principle is student current level of knowledge development interacts with the social, emotional, and intellectual climate of the course to impact learning. So this principle is related to the student's overall or holistic development. Teacher need to provide a kind of environment in the classroom that tackles students' social, emotional, intellectual, all kinds of learning, like not just only their intellectual learning, but the social and emotional aspects as well. Because the students are the part of the society as a whole, and school as a social institution must provide opportunities to students to interact with one another, learn from one another, and a right type of environment so the students can flourish and develop their understandings. The seventh principle is to become self-directed learners. Students must learn to monitor and adjust their approaches to learning. So it is also called the metacognitive learning, and it is the self-reflection about their own learning, that what the students are, why I am learning this, and at what level I am that in that process. So it is also related to the mastery approach, that the students learn the things, so the students evaluates themselves their own learning and they go towards mastery. So there are the implications of these principles of learning for the teaching practice. So the strategies, we can call them the strategies. So the strategy number one is like teacher need to collect data about students and use it to design instruction. So a teacher must have knowledge about the students' needs, what are their needs and what are their prior knowledge. so that the teacher's instruction can enhance students' learning. The other strategy, number two, is that be explicit about your learning goals, learning objectives, and expectations. So, a teacher should have a detailed explanation of their learning goals, and they should know what are the objectives of learning and what a teacher expects from the students. So, if the teacher is clear about these aspects, he or she can teach these he or she can teach in a good way. Otherwise, like learning will take place in a blank minded way. The strategy number three is like scaffolding complex tasks. So it's the like the responsibility of the teacher to provide to create learning opportunities for the students and to scaffold complex tasks so that the students learn things step by step. Like it is the content need to be at the grade level and according to the mental abilities of the students. So the strategy number four is like helping students learn to function like experts. Like it's like providing the opportunities to students. So after some practice, they consider themselves as the experts of the field. So it's like providing the students with opportunities to interact with the task and also giving them the resources to become the independent learners and experts, like using different strategies like providing graphic organizers or mapping strategies so that the students learn on their own. The fifth strategy is like establish a supportive class climate. It is like the one of the most important aspects that the classroom environment need to be conducive for all students, and a teacher need to create the environment that tackle the learning needs of all students, not just a specific group of students. This is the main aspect that is missing in our schools, because teachers only focus on a specific group of students and the other students are neglected. So it is like the one of the main responsibilities of the teachers to care for the needs of the learning needs of all students. So I hope that you have learned the seven principles of learning and the implications of those principles for the teaching practice. So if you have any question or comment, please use the discussion forum or at the LMS, or comment below in the section. So this text was from the Ambrose Bridges and Lovett uh, text, How Learning Works, 7 Research Based Principles for Smart Teaching. Thank you.